Hi, Chiara. How are you?
Good, Douglas. How are you doing? Thank you for having me on your show.
Well, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. So, looking over your bio, you look like you're pretty busy. You're a wife, a mom, author, and a woman after God's heart. All of that's a full-time job. I think all of those
Yes, it
things.
is.
Yeah. How many children do you have?
I have two. I have two daughters, one 12 and a half and one 10 and a half.
How has COVID been for you guys? Are they back to school now?
My older one does the hybrid, which is they do a few days at home and then she goes in for school a couple days. My younger daughter decided to stay at home and do straight distance learning. So my older one next month and coming up in April will be going 5 days back to school, but my other one would just be staying home. So you have one and then you have the other. They're not the same.
Well, you're able to stay home with her, right?
Yes, I am able to stay home with both of them, and I do most of my writing in the evening and late evening when everybody goes to sleep. So this COVID time has made us quite cozy in a sense because my husband, who does traveling, has now not been doing as much traveling. So the office where we do all our work has now been converted into a classroom, and we've sent my husband down in the basement. So,
I'm sure he likes that. Yeah.
oh yes, I'm sure he does too.
Well, that's good because I've gotten very mixed reviews about the online learning for K through 12.
hmm
And it's hard on parents, particularly you're lucky that you can stay home and do what you do from home. But some parents can't, and some parents both have to go out to work. But once the kids were staying home, somebody had to either quit their job or take a leave, and it was very difficult financially for a lot of families to have the
Yes,
kids at home
yes.
because they're just not used to it. But I'm glad for you it was okay, so that's good.
So far, so good. They miss the socialization, and I think that's the biggest issue of
Yeah,
all the learning now is they miss their friends, and more in a classroom setting. But we have had to adapt, like most families have done, and it's challenging.
yeah, it's certainly true. So how long have you been writing? I know you have, how many books do you have out?
I have four books. I have two grown-up books, as I like to call. I do inspirational and Christian fiction. So I have two grown-up books, and then I dabbled in two middle grade aged fantasy fairy tales. So a total of four. My latest that came out this past November of 2020.
I have this conversation with authors regarding genre because when I was a kid growing up, I'm going to guess I'm probably a bit older than you, probably a lot. But there was like five genres of books,
hmm
and now there's about 500.
Oh
And
yes, and the subgenres. Don't
and the
forget that.
subgenres and the subgenres, and it just goes on and on. So I'm curious about what constitutes a book in the Christian or Christianity genre. Does it have to deal with the Bible and Jesus Christ and his teachings, and does it have to reference that, or how is it enabled to be a Christian genre book?
Well, there is the Christian that you have the nonfiction that deals with or historical that you have the Christian historical, and those are more nonfiction, and then you have the Christian slash inspirational where you have references to Bible scriptures, but it takes more of a story type, a tale in a sense. Um, my latest novel, She Made It Matter, one of the scriptures that I thought about in the story was the scripture of Joseph and his brothers where his brother sold him to slavery, and then he becomes the commander-in-chief for the Pharaoh of Egypt. And then many years later, when there's a famine, he is confronted with his brother and ends up forgiving him. So without knowing the story about She Made It Matter, it kind of brings in that whole forgiveness and self-worthiness and the process of being abandoned. So to answer that question, it was one of the scriptures that came to my mind after I wrote the story, and then it was kind of interweaved into it. But the story is a life story, a redemptive story about one woman's journey.
Okay, so it's been a while since I've been to Sunday school, so my Bible is a little bit rusty, but
yes.
The story of Joseph was one of forgiveness, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's correct.
Did that have any relation to Joseph and the amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat?
I think so, but I think they took it more from a Broadway perspective.
There was some element of you know what I mean? I think it started with that basic story,
Yes.
but it kind of went off on a tangent, I think. In your story, then, the moral of the story is forgiveness?
Well, there's a couple of themes. The story is about a character by the name of Amanda Reynolds. And it is her journey, it's a compelling story of her journey to regain sobriety, find salvation, and earn forgiveness after she was abandoned by her mom when she was a teenager, and then she loses her brother to cancer when she's in her 20s. So it's a story to vanquish those demons from her past and try to make her life right again. In the story itself of She Made It Matter, it tackles stories of alcohol abuse, family abandonment, food dependencies, things that have happened in somebody's life where they just have been down. And so it is her journey to kind of overcome that and put the past where it was in the past, so that way she can make her life right and for her family, because she is married and she has 2 daughters, but alcohol abuse has been, alcohol addiction has been part of her life, but she's masking it because of the things that have happened in her life. So if you were to think about this story in terms of a movie or movies, I would say it's a mix of It's a Wonderful Life, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and John Krakauer's novel Into the Wild. And it teaches. Yep. So it's kind of interweaves all of that together, but it's a sentimental because of the alcohol addiction and the issues that she has on her journey.
I liked the movie. I never read the book Into the Wild, but I saw the movie.
Yes.
And it's funny you mentioned that, because Hal Holbrook, who was in that, just passed away recently.
Yes, yeah. I heard about that too.
Yeah, it's a very good movie, very interesting. So tell me a little bit about the fantasy book. You said you write some children's books as well? Yes.
Are those, I have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, are those in the Christian theme genres as well, or is it not part of that?
I do have some themes that interweave within those 2 novels. The first one that I dabbled in was, it's called Petrella, the Gillian Princess. And it interweaves themes similar to Cinderella, Tangled, and Noah's Ark. And so it's a story about a princess who defies rank and authority in order to follow her heart. And in the book, my daughters actually did some illustrations in there, so I included some of the illustrations in there. But because it's about a princess defying rank and authority, it's about her father who's a king, and he is, very greedy, and he wants to be powerful. And so it deals with greed and apathy and I'm going against your parents. So some of those faith themes are interweaved in there, in Petrella, the Gillian princess. And then my other story, a tribute to Tulipia, it is about a tulip that is in a forest of vines and shrubs and trees, and her family are bullied. It's a parable about bullying, and they're bullied, and it's about laying down one's life in order to save another. So I kind of interweaved that theme in that story as well. But it all started with a trip to a garden with my daughter, that I saw this tulip standing, and it was surrounded by all this brush, and I thought, my gosh, this tulip seems to just hover over this garden, this messy garden, and it's almost like they wanted to pull her down. And so that thought came into my mind, and that's why I wrote that. But I also wrote that because my daughters at the time were going through some bullying issues at school. And so I wanted to teach them that sometimes you have to stand up for what is right, and sometimes that you have to stand alone when you're trying to do something right in life. So that was actually a pretty cool to do, kind of writing for a younger audience, because I've been used to writing more adult fiction.
There are people in the United States who feel that Christianity is under attack. How do you feel about that?
I do. With the COVID and the shutting down of churches, I read a statistic recently that said 60% of the churches, Catholic churches, Episcopalian, whatever churches, are closed, and only 40% are open. And in the 40% that are open, only 25% of people are going, because they can only have the 25% capacity. So which means 75% of those people aren't going. So if church is a place where broken people go, it's like a hospital for broken people, and the church is not open, where does somebody go? And so in a sense, I do feel that it's almost with the COVID, that's one of the places that have been shut down. And it has probably affected a lot of faiths. And people are like, well, I can't go, so I'm going to do something else. I'm going to be my phone, I'm going to be on my laptop, or what have you. So that I do feel it has been attacked in a sense with the COVID.
And then there have been some legal issues with that as well, because
yes,
in certain states there was a bit of hypocrisy where the churches were the first places to be shut down, but then other places that had equal numbers of people congregating were allowed to remain open.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
There's issues with the First Amendment, and so it got a little bit, I think, a little ugly, but things are starting to turn around somewhat. Have you been vaccinated? Did you get your COVID shot?
No, not yet.
Not yet? Okay. Are you in any hurry to get it?
No.
Some people are a little resistant about it. Yeah?
True, yes, you do have that. But if there's other people that need it first, then that's fine. I do have some hesitancy, Douglas, to be quite honest with you, and in terms of the vaccine, it hasn't been out there that long, and there's 3 different kinds and 3 different pharmaceutical companies that are out there for. So there's not enough data, I think, to see how things are moving along. So there is no hurry for me. If other people want to go ahead and do it, then that's quite all right. Then you go ahead in line.
I think I feel the same way you do. I'm not in any big hurry about it. And I don't really have to go out too much. I work in my studio and let everyone else get it first, and then I'll
Yes.
see, you know.
Yes,
If I want to go on
absolutely.
holiday or something and fly somewhere, later in the year, then I'll get it probably at that point. We do have to wrap this up. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Do you have a website that you want to give out?
Yes, it is www.chiaratalluto.com, and it's CHIARA, T as in Tom, ALLUTO.com.
Okay, and that has links to your book and
Yes,
books.
yes, and I have my latest one right here. It is
Okay.
She Made It Matter, and there it is.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing. It was nice meeting you. Nice talking to you. Best of luck with
Excellent.
everything.